Welcome to the NFC West Huddle, where we break down all the major storylines across the division with experts in each city. I'm Alyssa Charleston in Seattle, joined by Robbie Baker in Phoenix, Frank Malakote in San Francisco, and Gerard Moncure in Los Angeles. The regular season is here. Finally, I am so excited to talk about games that actually count. Let's open it up with important news from each team heading into Sunday's games and Monday for the San Francisco 49ers. Frank, big week with Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams returning to practice after their extensions were announced. Any concern for Kyle Shanahan about getting those two up to speed after missing most of training camp?
I don't think so. Trent Williams, big guy, of course, 15 years in the league now, all pro, all everything, maybe the best left tackle in the game. Restructures his deal. He wanted a little security at age 36 and said, need a little guaranteed money. $82 million, $48 million of that guaranteed. As mentioned, probably the best tackle in the game. Practiced, reported Tuesday, practiced Thursday for the first time. But he owns a gym in Houston, and he's been watching the team, loves Dominic Pooney, one of their rookie guards. He said that may be the biggest deal in the game. So he's in the game. He will be playing on Monday night. Brandon Ayuk, I don't think there's an issue with that. Maybe the longest holdout ever, and he even agreed that he probably should have signed a little bit earlier. 4 years, $120 million. He gets $76 million guaranteed. And oh, by the way, is one of 6 wideouts now in the NFL that are making at least $30 million or more. Now, Brandon, unlike Trent, was a hold-in. He actually was in camp. He was going to the meetings, working out, but not practicing with the team. So I don't think that'll be an issue. And let me throw this out there, too. Ricky Pearsall, 49ers top pick out of Florida, of course, was a victim of gun violence, got shot, and was hospitalized a week ago, was out of the hospital the next day, and apparently was in the weight room the day after that. So he's out for 4 games. He did FaceTime with the team. They had kind of a breakup party a week ago. And if you want to galvanize a football team, that is probably going to do it. They are jacked up and going to play one for Ricky. He's out the next 4.
Yeah, not the most ideal way for sure, but good to know that it in no way was his fault in that scenario either. So, Gerard, the Rams and Lions face off in a rematch of last year's playoff game that gave the Lions their first playoff win since 1991. What do we need to know about the Rams ahead of this Sunday night football kickoff in Detroit?
It's really about the health of the offensive line. Jonah Jackson, who they acquired in the offseason from Detroit, as a free agent, is good to go. He had a shoulder injury during the preseason, but he is good to go, and he is actually going to start at center. He and Matthew Stafford actually were that center quarterback combination back in 2020 before Stafford came to the Rams, so it's a natural position for him. He's played it his entire year. Steve Avila will move over to left guard. The big question mark is Rob Havenstein. Now, the right tackle has been in and out with a right ankle injury. He was limited at practice the other day. If he's a full go today at today's practice, which is taking place, Thursday afternoon, then this will be good news for the Rams offensive line. It's really about protecting Matthew Stafford, being able to run the football, protecting him by keeping him in reasonable downs on second and third against that Lions pass rush. That's really, in my opinion, the determining factor for the game. The Lions have a great offense coming back. The Rams, I think, are going to have to score 27 points to win this game. It's going to be a fast track in the Dome. So it's really all about that offensive line for the Rams. If they're healthy and the run game is good to go, the Rams, I think, are going to be in really good shape for that feature game Sunday night that the entire nation's going to watch.
Yeah, a change at center this close to the start of the season is interesting. We'll have our eyes on that. And Robbie, a lot of eyes will be on Kyler Murray and what he can do with his new wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. How do you expect the Cardinals to utilize the 4th overall 2024 draft pick right off the bat?
Yeah, well, we've seen Kyler Murray's tenure here in Arizona. He likes having a number 1 guy. If you go back a few years ago when DeAndre Hopkins was here, D-Hop averaged about 9 targets per game when he was healthy over his 3 seasons here in the desert. I would imagine as the season ramps up, we will probably see that kind of target share towards Marvin Harrison Jr. because you spent the 4th overall pick on this guy. And from everything we've seen throughout training camp, OTAs, rookie mini camp, and the practices to start this first game week of the season, Marvin looks like the wily veteran that we've kind of heard throughout the draft process and everything. This kid is mature. I shouldn't say kid. This young man is mature. He knows what it means to be a professional athlete. He said this week that JG, Jonathan Gannon's advice to him was just be you. Be the guy that made you a standout in high school, made you a standout at Ohio State. And I think he will be a main focal point of this Cardinals offense because, like I said, Kyler likes having that big body receiver that can go get the ball on any given down, and that's exactly what Marvin Harrison Jr. will be for this team.
And that could be a very explosive offense under the radar for sure. We know the Seahawks would likely have started the season without their top edge rusher, Uchenna Nwosu, who injured himself in that final preseason game, though he has not been ruled out yet. Something interesting from the injury reports this week is that their new free agent center, Connor Williams, has been a full participant in practice. He didn't officially sign with the Seahawks until August 7th, so just a short amount of time with his team, but he tore his ACL last year while playing for the Miami Dolphins. So the timetable could work out perfectly to where he could start for the Seahawks at center against the Broncos, similar to that Rams situation where they might have a change at center this early in the season and right before the regular season starts. It makes you feel a lot more confident because this offensive line, we don't really know what to expect from it, and it's a huge factor in determining how the Seahawks offense will operate under a new offensive coordinator named Ryan Grubb. The Seahawks haven't really invested in a center for at least 5 years. It's just been a rotating kind of situation at center. So Williams could also help Geno Smith really realize the potential of this offense. And we know Geno Smith would love to get the ball from a guy like Connor Williams, who is a 7-year veteran. We're just getting started on the NFC West Huddle. After the break, we're diving into each team's matchup with guys like Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen on the other sideline. Back here on the NFC West Huddle, the regular season is here. It's time to talk about Week 1 opponents and who has the edge. Robbie in Arizona, how optimistic are you this Cardinals offense can outscore Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills on Sunday?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting come Sunday because the truth is we think this Cardinals offense is going to be explosive and be able to put up a lot of points, but no preseason snaps and games. We've seen it in practice, but how will it translate to games and game speed? Well, we think that they will be able to put up points. And when you look at the Bills, they got some question marks on defense. Bobby Babich taking over as the defensive play caller there. There's question marks in their secondary. 2 safeties on the back end of that Bills defense have been changed out in the offseason. Milano's out at linebacker. Will that free up maybe James Conner to catch some more balls out of the backfield? Maybe Trey Benson, the rookie out of Florida State, maybe they will use him to kind of get those linebackers moving a little bit on the Bills' defense. I think that the Cardinals have the horses on offense to keep up with the Josh Allen and the Bills and what they're doing as well, because the Bills, they have questions on offense as well when it comes to their receiving core. Very young. This is probably one of the most interesting games in this opening weekend of the NFL season because there's so many question marks between both rosters, and I honestly think that it's set up for a pretty high-scoring affair.
And Frank, Monday night is the first chance to see how the San Francisco 49ers recover from last year's Super Bowl appearance and that loss. The New York Jets have a stacked defense. Who do you think wins in the trenches?
Well, they got Trent Williams back. I think I said that. They were 3-6 without Trent in the lineup since he signed with the team back in 2020. So I think he'll be a big difference. They are going up against a very, very good defense, but they know it well because Robert Saleh used to be their defensive coordinator. So these guys in practice went up against Saleh each and every day, so they are familiar with it. Jets were great last year. I think looking at the numbers, they were ranked number 2 in passing yards, number 3 in total yards allowed. They just didn't have much of an offense. Stout front line as well, including Javon Kinlaw, who played for the 49ers last year. So Saleh has picked up some of the 49er parts along the way. One interesting note to kind of keep an eye on, because the 49ers have a new D lineman. That would be Leonard Floyd. You may recall he played for Buffalo last year. He was the one that tackled or fell on the Achilles of Aaron Rodgers that put him out after 8 snaps. And oh, by the way, that was opening night. And oh, by the way, opening night again, the two will face off at Levi Stadium. So that should be fun to watch. Rodgers, of course, back home, went to Cal. I'll give a go Bears because I went there as well out of Chico. Has always been pretty ticked off that the Niners bypassed him, went with Alex Smith, did not draft him, and of course went on to have a Hall of Fame career with the Packers. Every time he plays the Niners, I think there's a little extra oomph in there, although during the playoffs he's 0-4. During the regular season, though, he is 6-3. So keep an eye on that matchup as well.
Cannot wait to see it. An angry Aaron Rodgers potentially coming back from that Achilles injury. And good to know that Christian McCaffrey looks like he is good to go. They kept him out of training camp for the most part after that calf strain. Gerard, over to the Rams. They get a Detroit Lions team that was just a few plays short of a Super Bowl appearance last year. Is it fair, like you said earlier, you're going to have to score a lot of points, are the Rams. Is it fair to expect just a complete shootout in Motor City?
Absolutely. I completely believe that. Last year's game was 24-23, and the Rams had several trips into the red zone where they had to settle for field goals in that game and not touchdowns. That's the real reason they lost that playoff game, because they got threes instead of sevens. Of course, this is a dome stadium with an artificial surface. It's a fast track. The Lions bring in one of the top indoor offenses in the entire football league. They always score a lot of points. And the Rams, of course, have a revamped defense. They have a new defensive coordinator in Chris Shula. They have several younger players, a couple rookies in that starting lineup defensively. So Sean McVay is dealing with the second youngest team in the entire National Football League. That is great for enthusiasm, maybe not so great for experience. So this thing could turn into, I don't know, a 30-27 game, a 31-27 game. The over-under, by the way, on this game is 52.5. I would definitely put my money on the over Sunday night.
Well, for me, it's unbelievable to think that Russell Wilson just 2 years ago returned to Seattle as a Denver Bronco, because so much has happened since then. He was booed relentlessly early on in that game. And now this year, 2024, those Broncos come back with a guy named Bo Nix, who hasn't fared so well against teams from Seattle. As an Oregon Duck, he was 0-3 against the Washington Huskies in his 2 seasons in Eugene. I'm really interested to see how Sean Payton uses him on Sunday. Payton mentioned how rare it is for a rookie to be voted as one of their captains. I believe that Sean Payton said he had never seen it in his long NFL coaching career, but on paper, it's a good situation for Mike Macdonald to start his Seahawks coaching career, especially with the defense he likes to bring against a rookie quarterback who is starting in week 1. Macdonald said he's not putting much stock into what Bo Nix did at Oregon, which was impressive as more of a running quarterback who could also throw some dimes. But he's very familiar with what Sean Payton likes to do on offense. So the Hawks are 5.5-point favorites at home. Excited to see how their offense gets going with potentially Connor Williams, a new center, starting in the middle for the Seahawks offensive line. Coming up, we've all been at training camp and preseason games. We're predicting some breakout candidates for all 4 NFC West teams. That's next. Well, no good football show is complete without a few predictions. We're forecasting a breakout candidate on each team here in the NFC West Huddle. Let's go straight to Los Angeles. Gerard, which player from the Rams do you think the rest of the NFC will be talking about this season?
That's wide receiver Jordan Whittington, the rookie out of Texas. He was spectacular in the preseason. No one really saw this coming. 11 catches, 126 yards, played so well. Sean McVay didn't even play him in the final preseason game because he was already going to make the team. There is talk that he has moved up so far up the depth chart that he's passed Tutu Atwell. So in an offense where you have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, Puka Nacua, of course, on his way to being a superstar in this league if he remains healthy. Cooper Kupp was a Super Bowl MVP. Jordan Whittington could be on the field with them Sunday night. And if you're the Detroit defense, you're going to shift your defense and your defensive backfield towards Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And the guy that's going to get the single coverage, the guy that's going to be maybe you're hoping to be the last option, is Jordan Whittington, and he could end up being Matthew Stafford's top option. That's how much confidence Matthew Stafford has in him already. This could make the Rams very, very formidable in the air if Whittington has the type of breakout year his preseason, foresaw. And you got to remember, he was catching passes from Stetson Bennett, not Matthew Stafford. That's my pick, Jordan Whittington.
All right, Frank, who on the San Francisco 49ers do you think will have a breakout season?
I'm going to go with another Jordan Mason, year and a half on the team. He's running back up to Elijah Mitchell, who is injured again. Always injured, it seemed like, although he's got great skills too. And he's been kind of hidden behind Christian McCaffrey. This guy's been a workhorse in the preseason, can move a pile, very dynamic. And by the way, he might be one of those wink little fantasy picks that you can sneak under the table. I think he's one guy to watch.
Okay, great advice there. Robbie, the breakout candidate in Arizona, who are you picking?
Yeah, I'm also going to go on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with tight end Trey McBride. If you look at the second half of last year when Kyler Murray came back from the ACL injury, Trey McBride averaged about 8 targets per game. Now, will he have that same target share when you have a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. added to the offense? It's hard to say, but overall last year, Trey had 81 catches and 825 yards, and most of those stats were accumulated when Kyler Murray came back. I mentioned earlier in the show how Kyler likes having a big number 1 wide receiver target. Well, he also likes having kind of that safety blanket tight end, and I think that's where Trey McBride could have a chance to make a real impact for this Cardinals offense.
Okay, for the Seahawks, I'm going with a different wide receiver, a sophomore wide receiver. Jackson Smith-Njigba had 63 receptions last year for 628 yards and 4 touchdowns as a rookie, but I think with a new offensive coordinator and Ryan Grubb, he is going to find himself open a whole lot more than last year. All the receivers told us throughout camp and early in the season that this new offense gets guys open naturally just by the routes that are run rather than having to fight guys one-on-one against the defender to break free. Jackson showed us that he has very sure hands last season when he got the ball. Geno Smith just didn't have a ton of time to find him last year with the offensive line in his lap almost all the time. He was the 5th most pressured quarterback in the NFL. DK Metcalf is still going to draw double teams early and often. I expect the rest of the NFC West to get familiar with JSN's name this year. All right, we're closing out this NFC West huddle with something simple. What is everyone looking forward to the most in Week 1? Stay with us. Well, the 2024 NFL season is underway, but we have yet to see all 4 NFC West teams take the field. So to wrap things up tonight, I want to hear each of your thoughts on the thing you're most looking forward to in Week 1. Frank, we'll start with you in San Francisco.
All right, I'm looking forward to seeing Christian McCaffrey. They keep him wrapped up in a box the entire preseason. He's had kind of a strained calf, but should be good to go on Monday night. He's the most dynamic player in the league. And personally, I just love football Sunday. You got a game at 10, a game at 1, a game at 5:30, and then, oh, by the way, a bonus game on Monday night. So bring it on.
It is the best time of the year. Gerard, what about you in L.A.?
Looking forward to seeing Matthew Stafford work his art on the field Sunday night. That game is going to have tremendous emotion, and it's a game that counts, which is, as we all know, you get tired of covering the preseason after about a week and a half. I'd love to see the NFL have the preseason actually only be 2 games, and let's get right to this. Let's get to that first week where we've got a ton of games that mean everything on Sunday to get it started. That's what I'm looking for. The starters playing games that count.
Yeah, Robbie, what about you in Arizona?
Yeah, kind of to Gerard's point there, I'm excited to see what this Cardinals offense looks like because we haven't seen it in a game. It's like having kind of like a fancy sports car in the garage and you got the cover over it all winter. Well, it's time to rip the cover off and fire this thing up and see what Kyler Murray, with a full offseason being healthy under him and all these weapons, can look like when they take on the Bills. And just for the NFL at large, I'm interested to see this new kickoff. We've seen it in the preseason, but how will it affect games in the regular season? Regular season game speed's different than the preseason. How will these new kickoff rules impact games? And as the season progresses, will the league make any adjustments to them as well?
Yeah, the kickoff thing will be something interesting to see. It's a new era of football up here in Seattle after 14 seasons of Pete Carroll, and most of them were awesome seasons, but we started to know what to expect in those final 2 to 3 years. Players needed something to change, and Mike McDonald will not be able to fill Pete Carroll's shoes in year 1 or year 2, but he has already juiced up this whole team with more enthusiasm and this fan base with something different to talk about. I think this is essentially a tryout year for a lot of these players that want to be here next year, so we're going to see a motivated Seahawks team, rejuvenated players, in almost every game on both sides of the ball. That's what I'm looking forward to most. That'll do it for us here on the NFC West Huddle. Thanks to all 3 of you for joining us. We'll be back next Friday to discuss Week 1. That's Friday at 7:30. Have a great night.